If I die tonight, Your Majesty, do not let them call it an accident. Alpha King Ryan Blackwell stopped halfway across the palace courtyard. Emily Parker stood beneath the stone arch 20 feet away, pale but steady, one hand gripping the strap of her work bag. Behind her, a royal carriage rested crooked against a fountain after crossing nearly 40 feet of open courtyard without slowing. 2 guards were calming the frightened horses. No one appeared seriously hurt. Ryan looked from the carriage to Emily. What happened? The brakes failed. That explains the carriage. It does not explain what you just said. Emily swallowed. 5 years ago, Mason Cole had rejected her before half of Westbrook Pack, calling an Omega-2 weak to stand beside an Alpha. Since then, Emily had learned how easily people stopped noticing a woman once they decided she did not matter. She worked inventory at Blackwell's Winter Relief Warehouse, rented a small room above a bakery, and kept her life quiet. Quiet was supposed to be safe. Tonight had proved otherwise. Ryan approached, stopping several feet from her. Were you in its path? I was crossing from the warehouse office. Did the driver lose control? Emily held his gaze. There was no driver. Ryan's expression sharpened. He turned toward the carriage, then toward the sloped service lane above the courtyard. It was parked up there? Yes. I heard the wheels before I saw it moving. Ryan called Commander Daniel Brooks over. Seal the service lane. Nobody touches that carriage until it is inspected. Daniel nodded and moved away. Ryan faced Emily again. Why do you think this was meant for you? Because it should have missed me. She opened her work bag and removed a folded sheet of paper. Her fingers trembled once before becoming still. I measured the wheel tracks after it stopped. Ryan unfolded the page. Emily had sketched the courtyard and marked the carriage's path in careful pencil lines. You did this before coming to me. I needed to know whether fear was making me see something that was not there. Ryan studied the drawing. And the slope should have carried it past the warehouse entrance. Instead, the front. Wheels were already angled toward the doorway I use when my shift ends. Ryan looked back at the carriage. You cannot know when they were turned. No. Emily met his eyes. That is why I am asking you to investigate, not believe whatever frightens me most. Something in his expression changed. Before he could answer, Daniel returned with a palace mechanic. Your Majesty, the retaining pin in the brake linkage was removed. It does not look like ordinary wear. Ryan's gaze settled on Emily. Who wants you dead? If I knew, I would not have come to you. How long have you believed someone was targeting you? She hesitated. Ryan noticed. Emily. 3 days. His voice lowered. Why 3 days? Because this is the second accident. Ryan went completely still. Tell me about the first. Emily glanced toward the palace doors, where servants and officials had begun gathering. Not here. Ryan followed her gaze. Someone might be curious. Someone else might be listening. He motioned toward the public records room. You choose where. Emily pointed to the room beside the courtyard. There. Door stays open. Commander Brooks stays outside. Agreed. She took one step, then stopped. There is something you need to know before we go inside. Ryan waited. Emily tightened her grip on the work bag. The first accident happened 12 hours after I questioned a shipment at the Royal Relief Warehouse. Ryan left the records room door halfway open, exactly as Emily had requested. Commander Daniel Brooks remained outside where she could see him. Ryan did not sit. Neither did Emily. Start with the shipment. She placed her work bag on the table. 3 nights ago, I was finishing inventory for the Winter Relief Program. Food, blankets, medicine, heating supplies. 48 crates were loaded for Cedar Hollow. And something changed. The destination. Emily folded her hands to keep them steady. After I certified the load, my supervisor ordered the crates transferred to another wagon. It had no territory insignia. Your supervisor has a name. Thomas Reed. What explanation did he give you? He said the transfer had already been authorized. Ryan glanced toward Daniel. Do not question Reed yet. Verify first. Emily looked at him. You are not arresting him for answering your question badly? Ryan shook his head. No. Some tension left her shoulders. Good. You sound disappointed that I am reasonable. I have known powerful men who preferred conclusions to questions. Mason Cole's name remained unspoken, but Ryan understood. He did not ask her to explain. What happened 12 hours later? Emily reached into her bag and removed a small metal bolt wrapped in cloth. A storage shelf collapsed beside my workstation. Ryan's gaze dropped to the bolt. Were you hurt? No. I had stepped away to check a manifest. Where did you find that? About 10 feet from the shelf, beneath packing paper. Daniel entered after Emily nodded permission and examined the bolt. It could be a support fastener. Thomas said maintenance inspected the shelf and blamed overloaded crates. Emily said, "Was it overloaded?" Ryan asked. "Not according to my weight sheet." Ryan looked at Daniel. Check the shelf capacity, maintenance log, and everyone who had access to that section. Quietly, Daniel left. Ryan returned his attention to Emily. "Why did you not report the shelf immediately?" Her mouth tightened. "Report what?" "A loose bolt and a fallen shelf. If you believed someone caused it." "I did not know that." She paused. "And I know what happens when someone like me makes an accusation without proof." "Someone like you?" "A rejected Omega." The words came without self-pity. That made them land harder. People hear bitter before they hear careful. They hear attention-seeking before they hear evidence. Ryan did not tell her she was wrong. They both knew she was not. "So you kept the bolt?" "I kept the question." A few minutes later, Daniel returned with the palace mechanic who had inspected the carriage. The older man removed his cap. "Your Majesty, I checked the full brake assembly. The retaining pin was removed deliberately. The front wheels were also positioned toward the warehouse entrance before the carriage began rolling." Emily felt her stomach tighten. Ryan asked, "Could the wheels have turned that far on their own?" "Not from that slope, sir. Who could access the service lane?" "Stable staff, warehouse employees, suppliers, guards, council couriers. Dozens of people. Evidence of intent. Still no suspect." The mechanic left. Daniel remained. "I also checked the warehouse maintenance log." He placed a copied page on the table. No inspection was recorded after the shelf collapse. Emily stared at it. "Thomas told me maintenance had cleared it." "Then Thomas lied," Ryan said. "But that still does not prove he removed the bolt or touched the carriage." Emily looked at him, surprised again. Ryan noticed. "You can stop looking shocked whenever I refuse to accuse someone without evidence. Give me time." The corner of his mouth almost moved. Daniel opened another folder. "I can verify the Cedar Hollow transfer next." Ryan nodded. "Every signature, every wagon, every authorization." Emily reached for her bag. "I am coming. That may put you back near whoever is watching you. And keeping me behind palace walls may tell them exactly how frightened I am." Ryan considered her for a moment. "2 guards. They stay far enough back that you can work." "Agreed." He looked at the bolt, then at the carriage report. "Before tomorrow, I need the exact words Thomas used when you questioned that shipment." Emily remembered the loading floor, the unmarked wagon, and Thomas barely looking up from his ledger. "He told me the transfer was authorized." "Anything else?" Her expression hardened. "Yes." Ryan waited. Emily met his eyes. "He said Omegas count boxes. They do not ask where they go." By 7 the next morning, Emily was back inside the Royal Relief warehouse, standing 3 feet from the desk where Thomas Reed had told her to stop asking questions. Ryan arrived with Daniel and 2 guards who remained near the entrance, far enough away to honor their agreement. Conversations faded across the loading floor. Thomas emerged from his office, surprise flashing across his face before he covered it. "Your Majesty, I was not informed there would be an inspection." "That was intentional," Ryan said. Thomas glanced at Emily. "Is there a problem?" Emily answered, "I need the Cedar Hollow manifest from 3 nights ago." Thomas gave her a thin smile. "I already explained that transfer. You told me it was authorized." "Because it was." Ryan stepped closer to the desk. "Then showing us the authorization should be easy." Thomas hesitated for barely a second. "Of course." He returned with a ledger and several attached forms. Daniel checked the committee seal against the Royal Registry. "Authentic." Ryan read the entry aloud. 48 relief crates. Cedar Hollow. Loaded at 6:20 in the evening. Destination amended at 6:42. Emily leaned closer. The numbers matched her memory exactly. "Who approved the change?" Ryan asked. Thomas pointed to the notation. "Emergency Redistribution Committee." "Where were the crates sent?" "West Ridge Distribution Depot." Daniel looked up. "Cedar Hollow reported shortages yesterday." Thomas spread his hands. "Redistribution decisions are above my position." Emily studied the wagon record. The replacement wagon had no territory plate. Contractors sometimes operate without local insignia. "You did not say that when I asked." Thomas's expression tightened. "I did not owe a warehouse clerk an explanation of council procedure." Ryan's voice cooled. Today you do. Thomas looked away first. Daniel copied the names of everyone who had handled the shipment. 2 hours later, the answers began coming back. The replacement wagon belonged to a licensed palace contractor. Its route permit was valid. The transfer seal was genuine. Every one of the 48 crates had been signed out properly. Ryan stood beside Emily near the loading dock, reading the final verification. Nothing was stolen from this warehouse. No, Emily said. And Thomas told the truth about the authorization. He still lied about maintenance inspecting the shelf, which makes him suspicious. Not guilty. Ryan looked sideways at her. You enjoy reminding me of that. Someone should. Daniel approached, carrying settlement reports. There is more. Cedar Hollow is not the only territory reporting shortages. He spread 3 reports across a packing table. Pine Creek had received barely 60% of its heating allocation. Millstone had received less medicine than requested. Cedar Hollow was short on both blankets and fuel. Emily read the territory profiles. All 3 communities had unusually large Omega populations. Where did their supplies go? Ryan asked. Daniel opened the redistribution ledger. West Ridge had received additional shipments. So had North Valley and Briar County, each governed by influential alpha families. Ryan's expression hardened. Political favoritism? Maybe, Emily said. Or legitimate emergencies. Ryan looked at her. You are defending the people who may be targeting you. I am defending the difference between a pattern and proof. For several hours they compared requests, departures, and receiving records. Some reroutes had clear explanations. Others did not. Nothing yet connected the transfers to the carriage or the fallen shelf. Near sunset, Emily returned to the Cedar Hollow file and found the original loading sheet beneath a stack of duplicates. Her own signature appeared at the bottom. Under it was a sentence in her handwriting. Destination amended after loading. Original receiving settlement not notified before departure. Ryan read the note twice. Why did you write this? Because I certified 48 crates for Cedar Hollow. If someone changed the destination afterward, I wanted the record to show when my responsibility ended. Daniel checked the witness section. His expression changed. There should be a second warehouse witness. Emily looked at the blank line. There was not one that night. Ryan understood. So if anyone questions what happened before the amendment, I am the only independent person who can testify to what was loaded and when the destination changed. Emily stared at her own signature. For years, being overlooked had made her feel powerless. Now someone might be afraid for exactly the opposite reason. She had noticed. She had written it down. And for the first time, Ryan asked the question that frightened her more than the carriage had. Emily, what happens if you testify? I do not know, Emily said. But someone may be very interested in making sure we never find out. Ryan held her gaze for a moment, then turned to Daniel. Get the rules governing destination amendments and seasonal audits. Every version currently in force. Daniel left while Emily returned the loading sheet to the table. She expected Ryan to tell her to leave the warehouse. Instead, he asked, what would you check next? Emily glanced at the redistribution ledger. The supplies. We already know where they went. We know where the paperwork says they went. That answer changed the direction of the investigation. Daniel returned with route records showing that the Cedar Hollow wagon had stopped at the Greyhaven transfer yard before continuing toward West Ridge. The same yard had processed rerouted shipments from Pine Creek and Millstone. Ryan pointed to the name beside the transfer entries. Calvin Ross, yard manager. Appointed through the Emergency Redistribution Committee, Daniel added. Ryan's expression tightened. Then we watch him. Emily shook her head. Watch the shipment. Ryan looked at her. Why? People change their behavior when they know someone important is asking questions. Crates do not. The following morning, they observed a routine relief shipment scheduled to pass through Greyhaven. From a customs office overlooking the yard, Emily watched workers unload blankets and heating fuel from one wagon and divide them between 2 others. One continued toward its listed destination. The second turned toward Briar County. Ryan leaned closer to the window. That is not on the original manifest. Daniel quietly copied the wagon number. 20 minutes later, he returned with the updated receiving authorization. The transfer is legal. Ryan took the document. Again, emergency priority request. Approved this morning. Emily read the justification. Briar County had reported a legitimate heating shortage. Independent county records confirmed it. Ryan set the page down. So this transfer tells us nothing. It tells us something important, Emily said. Not every reroute is corrupt. By afternoon, Daniel had gathered the emergency requests connected to the 3 settlements. Most were supported by inspections or verified shortages. One was not. He placed the West Ridge request beside the Cedar Hollow manifest. This is the transfer that took Emily's 48 crates. Ryan read the justification. West Ridge claimed 2 heating storage buildings had become structurally unsafe, creating an immediate supply shortage. When was this inspected? Daniel handed him another report. That is the problem. Both buildings passed an independent structural inspection the same morning this emergency request was filed. They remained open and operational for the rest of the week. Emily read both documents carefully. The dates matched. The building numbers matched. The emergency claim did not. Ryan's voice lowered. Someone invented a shortage. Or knowingly approved one that did not exist, Daniel said. Ryan checked the authorization. Victoria Hale. Emily looked up. Councilwoman Hale chaired the Emergency Redistribution Committee. Ryan reached for the document. We bring her in. No. Emily's answer came quickly. Ryan stared at her. Her signature is on a false emergency request. Her signature proves she approved it. It does not prove she created the false claim. She chairs the committee, and Thomas supervises the warehouse. You already learned what a title proves. Ryan went silent. Emily could see frustration in his face, but this time he did not fight the lesson. What do you suggest? He asked. She placed the legitimate Bryan County request beside the false West Ridge request. Find out who submitted each claim, who verified it, and who benefited after the transfer. If West Ridge is the only false request, we have one problem. If there are others, we have a system. Daniel nodded. I can trace 6 months of emergency authorizations. Ryan looked at Emily. And if Hale appears repeatedly? Then we ask why. You really dislike easy answers. Easy answers are how people decided I was worthless. The word silenced him. Emily looked back at the West Ridge document. Someone had used a legal emergency system to make a false transfer look legitimate. That was more dangerous than stolen crates because nothing had needed to disappear. Every box could be counted. Every seal could be genuine. Every signature could be real. Ryan seemed to reach the same conclusion. The paperwork is not hiding the theft. Emily shook her head. There may not be a theft. She tapped Victoria Hale's authorization. The paperwork is making the decision legal. Ryan looked at the false emergency claim again. Then the question is not who stole Cedar Hollow's supplies. No. Emily met his eyes. The question is who needed those supplies redirected badly enough to lie for them. By the following afternoon, 6 months of emergency transfers covered the records table. Emily had expected chaos. Instead, she found repetition. Cedar Hollow had lost supplies 4 times after loading. Pine Creek had lost 3 shipments. Millstone had lost 5. West Ridge and North Valley appeared again and again as replacement destinations. Bryan County appeared twice, but both transfers were supported by verified shortages. Emily separated those files immediately. Ryan noticed. You are removing Bryan County. The evidence says those transfers were justified, even though its alpha is Victoria Hale's cousin. Especially because of that. If we keep facts just because they fit our suspicion, we are no better than the people we are investigating. Ryan leaned back. Remind me never to argue with you in front of witnesses. You already do. Daniel almost smiled before returning to the records. There is a political pattern. West Ridge and North Valley both supported Hale's proposal to expand emergency committee authority last spring. Ryan studied the voting record. And the settlements losing supplies? Cedar Hollow opposed it. Pine Creek abstained. Millstone requested independent oversight. Emily felt the shape of the problem becoming clearer, but she refused to name it too soon. Political benefit explains why someone might redirect supplies. It does not explain why my note matters enough for someone to target me. Ryan nodded. Then we answer that next. Emily arranged the manifests by date. Something bothered her. The questionable transfers clustered near the end of each reporting period. Daniel, when are warehouse departures compared with receiving records? At the seasonal audit. And destination amendments? He opened the procedural handbook. Reviewed if they exceed the quarterly threshold. Emily looked at Ryan. These settlements crossed that threshold. Daniel read further. Any independent warehouse witness may dispute an amendment if the destination changed after loading. Emily's eyes dropped to her own signature on the cedar hollow sheet. What happens then? Daniel turned the page. The committee must disclose the full authorization chain, including the original request, verification, approval, and final receiving record. Ryan went still. So your testimony does not merely confirm where the crates were supposed to go. It forces them to show who made every decision afterward. Emily felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter air. Ryan asked, "When is the seasonal audit?" 9 days from now, Daniel said. Ryan immediately looked at Emily. "You are not returning to your apartment tonight." Her expression hardened. That sounded very much like an order. Someone may be trying to prevent you from reaching that audit. And putting me somewhere I cannot leave does their work for them. Ryan opened his mouth, then stopped. A few days earlier, he might have insisted. Instead, he asked, "What would make you feel protected without making you feel confined?" Emily considered the question. "A room in the public guest wing. My name stays on the register. 2 guards outside, never inside. I keep access to these records, and I decide when I leave." Done. Daniel marked the arrangement, then looked back at the handbook. There is another provision. Emily turned. "What?" "If the independent witness is unavailable, the warehouse supervisor may certify the original loading record." Thomas read. The room fell silent. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Then if you never appear, Reed can replace your testimony." "But he cannot replace my objection," Emily said. Daniel checked the rule again. "Correct. Your handwritten dispute is what triggers disclosure of the authorization chain." Ryan looked at the bolt from the collapsed shelf, then at the carriage inspection report. The connection was no longer merely emotional. Someone had reason to want Emily unavailable before the audit. Yet Emily saw another problem. This still is not enough. Ryan frowned. "Why not?" She lifted her loading sheet. "My note can expose the authorization chain, but it does not prove that anyone in that chain arranged what happened to me. If we accuse Hale now, we may warn the real person." Ryan slowly nodded. "So we need to know who reacts to the possibility that you will testify." Emily looked at the audit schedule. Fear settled quietly beneath her ribs, but it no longer controlled the room. "Then stop asking who benefited from the past." She turned the calendar toward Ryan and Daniel. "Let us find out who is afraid of what I do next." The plan was simple enough to explain in one sentence and dangerous enough that Ryan disliked it immediately. "We give each person a different interview time," Emily said. "Then we watch which time someone reacts to." Daniel opened the list of officials connected to the disputed transfers. 7 names remained relevant. Thomas Reed, Calvin Ross, 3 committee administrators, Councilman Robert Hayes, and Victoria Hale. Ryan studied them. 7 people with access to different parts of the system. 7 people with reason to care about the audit. Emily corrected. "We still do not know who has reason to care about me." Ryan nodded. He had stopped treating those distinctions as obstacles. By noon, Daniel had prepared 7 legitimate preliminary interview notices. Thomas was informed that Emily might testify Monday morning. Calvin received Tuesday afternoon. The committee administrators were each given different times. Hayes received Wednesday morning. Victoria Hale's office alone received Thursday at 8:30. No notice contained an accusation. Each simply stated that an independent warehouse witness could be questioned before the seasonal audit. Then they waited. Emily hated waiting. By mid-afternoon, she had crossed the records room 3 times and checked the courtyard window 7. Ryan looked up from a ledger. "If you stare at that gate long enough, it will not confess." "I am not waiting for the gate. You have checked it 7 times. Emily glanced at him. "You counted. Apparently your habits are contagious." Despite herself, she smiled. It vanished when Daniel entered carrying a sealed security report. "We have movement." Ryan stood. "Which notice?" "Thursday morning." Emily felt her pulse change. "Victoria Hale." Daniel placed a courier log on the table. Less than 2 hours after Hale's office received its notice, her chief aide, Melissa Grant, dispatched a palace courier to Greyhaven. "To Calvin Ross?" Ryan asked. "No." The courier delivered a sealed envelope to a private messenger service. That messenger then contacted a maintenance contractor named Aaron Pike. Emily looked at Daniel. "Maintenance." Pike has held temporary service contracts at both palace and municipal facilities. Ryan's attention sharpened, including the relief warehouse. Daniel checked the file. His company appears on several general maintenance lists, but I have not confirmed whether he personally worked there. Emily immediately said, Then do not connect him to the shelf yet. Ryan looked at her. I was not going to. You were thinking it. Thinking is still legal. Daniel continued. There is more. Pike performed authorized work near the Palace Stable Lane last month. Ryan looked toward the carriage report. That gives him knowledge of the area. Knowledge, Emily said. Not proof he touched the carriage. Ryan gave her a tired look. I heard it before you said it. The next report arrived 3 hours later. Pike had rented a room across from the east guest entrance for Wednesday night. The location mattered because anyone using that entrance could watch the corridor leading to the preliminary interview rooms. Ryan placed both hands on the table. Only Hale's office was told you would appear Thursday morning. Yes. Her aide sends a message. That message reaches a contractor. The contractor takes a room overlooking the entrance you are expected to use. Yes. And you are still going to tell me that is not proof. Emily met his eyes. It is proof that Hale's office reacted to the notice. It is not proof of what Pike intends to do, and it is not proof Victoria personally ordered anything. Ryan exhaled slowly. You make certainty exhausting. Certainty should be exhausting. Daniel looked between them. We can cancel the preliminary interview. No, Emily said. Ryan's expression hardened. Emily, if we change the schedule now, whoever reacted learns that we noticed. I am not putting you at that entrance to preserve an investigation. I am not asking you to. She pulled the palace floor plan toward her. Let them believe I will use it. Daniel understood first. A decoy arrival. Emily nodded. I stay somewhere secure with a clear exit. Your people watch the corridor. Nobody approaches Pike unless he does something that gives them a lawful reason. Ryan studied the plan, then looked directly at her. And if I think the risk changes? You tell me. You do not decide for me. Silence held between them for a moment. Agreed, he said. Daniel gathered the reports, but Emily stopped him. One more thing. Do not question Melissa Grant tonight. Why? Ryan asked. Emily looked at the 7 different notices spread across the table. Because right now, someone believes they know exactly where I will be Thursday morning. She touched Victoria Hale's copy with one finger. I want to know what they do with that belief. If Pike came because of Thursday, then tomorrow we find out what he was sent to do. Emily's voice was steady, but sleep had barely touched her that night. At 8:15 the next morning, she stood with Ryan and Daniel inside an upstairs records room overlooking the east guest entrance. Below them, palace workers crossed the courtyard as though nothing unusual were happening. A clerk wearing a coat similar to Emily's carried her familiar work bag through the entrance and disappeared into the interview corridor. Emily remained behind the window, exactly where she had chosen to be. 8:20, Daniel said. Nothing happened. Ryan stood several feet from Emily, close enough to respond, but not close enough to crowd her. We can still end this. And learn nothing. Learning nothing is preferable to putting you at risk. Emily looked at him. I am not at the entrance. I know. Then trust the plan. At 8:23, Daniel straightened. A man in a gray maintenance coat had entered through the public gate carrying a leather tool case. Daniel compared him with the contractor photograph. Aaron Pike. Pike presented paperwork to a palace attendant, then walked toward the east corridor. What is the work order? Ryan asked. Daniel checked the security copy. Emergency ventilation inspection. His eyes narrowed. The authorization number belongs to a repair completed last month. False access. Ryan reached for the door. Emily spoke quietly. Wait. He entered under invalid authorization. Then you have reason to stop him whenever necessary. But we still do not know why he came. Ryan forced himself to remain where he was. Pike stopped beside the corridor's heating controls, but never opened his tool case. Instead, he looked both directions, walked to the room where he believed Emily was waiting, and slipped an envelope beneath the door. Daniel gave a signal. 2 guards approached Pike before he reached the courtyard. There was no struggle. Pike simply stopped when Commander Brooks appeared and asked him to remain for questioning. Daniel retrieved the envelope and carried it upstairs. Emily opened it herself. Inside was a typed message offering her $500 if she withdrew her audit objection and left Blackwell territory before noon. Ryan read it twice. He came to buy your silence. Someone sent him to buy it. Daniel questioned Pike while Emily and Ryan waited. 20 minutes later, he returned with a payment receipt. Pike says he was hired through an intermediary. He claims he knew nothing about Emily until yesterday. His instructions were only to deliver the offer and report whether she accepted. Who paid him? Ryan asked. The commercial account belongs to Hale Administrative Services. Ryan's face hardened. Victoria. Emily shook her head. Her office. Daniel nodded. The account is managed by Melissa Grant. The courier log shows Grant personally signed the envelope sent to Pike. Ryan looked at the receipt, then at Emily. That connects Hale's office directly to an attempt to stop your testimony. Yes. But not Victoria personally. Not yet. This time Ryan did not argue. Instead, he asked Daniel to obtain lawful access to the account records connected to Pike's payment. The result arrived shortly after noon. Daniel entered carrying 3 transaction records. Pike was not paid for the first time yesterday. Emily looked up. Daniel placed the earliest record on the table. His company received a special maintenance payment the day before the warehouse shelf collapsed. A subcontractor working under Pike's account signed into the relief warehouse that evening. Emily felt the room narrow around her. Daniel placed down the second record. Another special payment was issued the night before the carriage incident. A different subcontractor entered the Palace stable service lane after regular working hours. Ryan's expression went still. Both payments came from the same account. Hale Administrative Services. Emily stared at the dates. For the first time, the shelf and carriage were connected by more than suspicion. Ryan asked, who authorized the payments? Melissa Grant processed them. Emily looked at him. Processed is not authorized. Daniel placed the final document down. Correct. So I checked the discretionary expense approvals. At the bottom of both payment requests appeared the same authorization code. Daniel's voice lowered. That code is assigned exclusively to Victoria Hale. Silence filled the room. Ryan looked at Emily, but she was already reading the documents herself. Could Grant have used it without Hale knowing? Possibly, Daniel said. Which is why this still needs corroboration. Emily nodded. Ryan did too. No premature victory. No convenient certainty. Daniel continued. Pike has agreed to answer further questions now that he knows we have the earlier payments. Ryan asked, does he know who authorized them? He says Grant told him the instructions came directly from Councilwoman Hale. But that is his testimony. We need Grant. Emily looked toward the audit notice lying on the table. Then do not confront Victoria yet. Ryan understood immediately. Tomorrow's public audit. She believes Pike delivered the offer and left. Emily folded the letter carefully. Let her walk into that chamber, believing we know less than we do. Ryan studied her face. And what do you intend to do? Emily placed the payment records beside her original loading sheet. Ask questions. That is all. For the first time that morning, the faintest smile touched her mouth. It has been enough so far. Before this audit begins, I am formally disputing the Cedar Hollow Destination Amendment. Emily's voice carried farther through the chamber than she expected. 12 council representatives sat behind the long review table. Warehouse supervisors and committee officials filled the side benches. Victoria Hale sat near the center in a dark blue suit, calm enough to look almost uninterested. Ryan remained at the head of the chamber. He did not speak for Emily. He had promised he would not. The chief auditor adjusted his glasses. Under what provision? Emily placed the handbook beside her original loading sheet. Independent Witness Review. Section 14. I certified 48 crates for Cedar Hollow before their destination was changed. The auditor examined her signature. Your objection requires disclosure of the authorization chain. That is why I am here. Victoria finally looked at her. Emergency redistribution is legal, Miss Parker. I know. Then what are you alleging? Nothing yet. Emily placed the West Ridge request on the table. I am asking why an emergency transfer was approved using a structural shortage that independent inspection records say did not exist. The room quieted. Victoria folded her hands. Committee members rely on reports submitted to them. We do not personally inspect every building. Then who submitted the West Ridge claim? The auditor opened the authorization file. Melissa Grant. Emily continued. Who approved it? Another page turned. Councilwoman Hale. A murmur moved through the chamber. Victoria did not flinch. I approve dozens of transfers. A mistaken report does not establish misconduct. I agree, Emily said. That answer seemed to unsettle Victoria more than an accusation would have. Emily placed the 7 preliminary interview notices before the auditor. Did you know I was scheduled to give a private statement yesterday morning? No. Did you know which entrance I was expected to use? Of course not. Daniel stepped forward and explained that 7 officials had received 7 different interview times. Only Hale's office had received Thursday at 8:30. Emily then placed Pike's letter on the table. Less than 2 hours after your office received that notice, your chief aide contacted Aaron Pike. Yesterday morning, he entered the palace using an invalid maintenance order and delivered this offer asking me to withdraw my objection and leave Blackwell territory. Victoria's expression tightened. If Melissa Grant misused an administrative account, she will answer for it. Emily paused. Which account? Silence. Victoria blinked. Excuse me. I said your aide contacted Pike. I did not say which account paid him. Victoria looked toward the payment receipt, still lying face down beside Daniel. Ryan remained silent. Emily asked, how did you know an administrative account was involved? It was an assumption. Then perhaps this will help. Daniel turned over 3 transaction records. Hale Administrative Services paid Pike yesterday. The same account issued special maintenance payments immediately before both earlier incidents involving Miss Parker. Victoria's face lost a fraction of its color. Daniel continued. A subcontractor under Pike's account entered the relief warehouse the evening before the shelf collapsed. Another entered the stable service lane after hours the night before the carriage incident. Access logs independently confirm both visits. Victoria looked toward Ryan. Contractors work throughout this kingdom. That proves nothing about me. Emily nodded. You are right. She placed the expense approvals beside the records. So we checked who authorized those payments. Victoria's eyes dropped to the pages. Melissa controls routine expenses. She processed them, Emily said. She did not authorize them. The chief auditor examined the authorization codes. Daniel spoke quietly. Both special payments were approved using a discretionary code assigned exclusively to Councilwoman Hale. Victoria pushed back from the table. Codes can be misused. Yes, Emily said. Which is why we did not stop there. The chamber doors opened. Melissa Grant entered beside 2 council investigators. Her composure was gone. The chief auditor addressed her. Miss Grant, did you use Councilwoman Hale's authorization code without her knowledge? Melissa looked at Victoria, then at the documents. No. Victoria's voice sharpened. Think carefully before you answer. Melissa did. I am. She faced the auditor. Councilwoman Hale authorized the payments. She told me Miss Parker could not be allowed to reach the seasonal audit with her objection intact. I contacted Pike because he could arrange access without connecting the work directly to our office. The room went completely still. Emily felt Ryan's attention shift toward Victoria, but he waited. One final question still mattered. Emily asked Melissa, did Councilwoman Hale authorize only the offer delivered yesterday? Melissa shook her head. No. She authorized the earlier arrangements too. Victoria rose. She is lying to protect herself. Ryan finally spoke. Then the evidence will be tested in a formal proceeding. His voice remained controlled. But we now have financial records, access records, Pike's testimony, and your aide's statement pointing to the same chain. Victoria turned toward Emily. For the first time, there was no contempt in her expression, only recognition. The Omega she had expected no one to hear had become the witness she could no longer dismiss. Emily met her gaze without triumph. You were right about one thing, Councilwoman. Victoria said nothing. Emily rested her hand on the original Cedar Hollow manifest. One warehouse clerk should never have been able to threaten an entire system. She looked at the council. The problem is that the system depended on everyone believing she would stay silent. By sunset, Victoria Hale no longer controlled the Emergency Redistribution Committee. The council suspended her authority while the formal investigation proceeded, and every disputed transfer connected to her office was frozen for review. Melissa Grant and Aaron Pike remained available to investigators, their statements tested against payment records, access logs, and authorization codes rather than accepted on trust alone. Thomas Reed was suspended for lying about the warehouse inspection, although no evidence showed that he had participated in the attempts against Emily. Ryan insisted on that distinction. Suspicion would not become guilt simply because the truth had finally begun to surface. The evidence against Victoria, however, had become something stronger. The same authorization chain that paid Pike had financed access to the warehouse before the shelf collapsed and to the stable lane before the driverless carriage rolled toward Emily. Pike confirmed that Grant had hired him to arrange subcontractors without revealing Hale's office as the source. Grant confirmed that Victoria had personally authorized the operation because Emily's objection could force the committee's decisions into public review. For the first time since the carriage crossed that courtyard, Ryan knew who had been behind it. Yet Emily discovered that knowing the name mattered less than changing the system that had made the plan possible. The seasonal audit continued for 3 more days. Cedar Hollow's missing allocation was restored. Pine Creek received its heating supplies. Millstone's medicine shipments were corrected. 3 weeks later, new safeguards became permanent. Every destination amendment required 2 independent witnesses. Emergency transfers required documented verification from outside the requesting office. Receiving destinations were entered into a public relief ledger within 24 hours, and no committee official could authorize and verify the same request. Most important to Emily, warehouse workers of every rank could report discrepancies directly to independent auditors without permission from a supervisor. She read the final policy in the public records room, where she had first insisted that the door remain open. Ryan stood across the table. "You changed the entire system." Emily looked up from the document. "We changed procedures. Those procedures decide whether families have heat in January. Then they needed changing." A faint smile touched his face. "You make victory sound inconvenient. Victory makes people stop checking their work." There is the irritating teacher again. This time Emily laughed. It surprised her how easily the sound came. Ryan watched her for a moment, then looked toward the open door. He had kept that promise too. He had protected her without turning protection into a cage. He had listened when she corrected him, and when the evidence finally pointed toward Victoria, he had waited until facts replaced anger. Emily gathered the papers. What happens to Hale now? The council investigators finish their case. She gets a hearing. The evidence gets tested. Even after everything? Especially after everything. Emily nodded. That answer mattered. Justice built on assumption would only be another version of the world that had once decided an Omega was worthless before hearing her speak. They walked outside together. Evening light stretched across the courtyard. The repaired carriage lane looked ordinary now, almost smaller than Emily remembered. She stopped near the place where she had stood that first night. "I thought being ignored kept me safe," she said. Ryan remained beside her. "Did it?" "No. It only taught the wrong people that nobody would notice if I disappeared." His expression changed. They noticed now. Emily looked toward him. "Because a king listened? Because you kept speaking?" For several seconds, neither moved. 5 years earlier, Mason Cole's rejection had taught Emily how quickly another person's judgment could become a sentence she carried inside herself. Ryan had never asked her to erase that history. He had simply refused to repeat it. "What will you do now?" he asked. "Go back to the warehouse. I was considering offering you a position with the Royal Audit Office." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Because I need rescuing from inventory? Because you noticed what people with titles missed?" She studied him. "That sounds dangerously close to respect." "I am learning." Slowly. Ryan smiled. They reached the palace steps before he asked, "Are you leaving tonight?" Emily turned toward him. "Are you ordering me to stay?" "No." "Good." She took 2 steps, then looked back, then asked properly. For perhaps the first time, the Alpha King seemed uncertain. "Emily Parker, would you stay for dinner?" She let the silence last just long enough to remind them both that the answer belonged entirely to her. "Yes." Then Emily walked beside him toward the palace. Not because rejection had secretly made her special, not because surviving had transformed her into someone worthy, but because she had always possessed the dignity others had refused to see. And this time, when an Omega spoke, a kingdom had learned to listen. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts, like, share, subscribe, enable notifications, and join us for more unforgettable alpha romance stories ahead.